I am wanting to talk to you a little bit today about what people are looking for. Is it religion? Is it salvation? Is it a combination? Um, Doing this church merger, I have found that I think some of the people are looking to do more of a religion than a salvation. And why I say that is because they're so hung up on, let's quote this verse, let's quote that verse, let's take it out of context of the letter that it was written in and put it into something we can utilize as a control factor in the church today. I know one church in my community that didn't happen to me personally, it happened to my father, and they wanted to see his bank account for tithing. This is what you make, you need to come up with the 10% or whatever their number was. And the funny thing is in the Old Testament there was a tithing, and the tithing was to the Levites of 10%, and then there was a tithing for the shortage, and then there was another tithing for a celebration. And I have heard it calculated by people smarter than me that it totaled up to about 23%, 22% versus the 10% that you hear about all the time. But in the New Testament, in the part of the Bible that's for the Gentiles, which is me, I'm a Gentile, I'm not Jewish, it says to give with your heart, to give what you can, because God knows your heart. And if you give with your heart, with the intent of this being an offering of all that you have or all that you can afford, then God understands. A lot of things different in the economy then than now. Back in that day, yes, they had money, but it was more of a barter system, is how the world ran back then. I'm a blacksmith, I'll make your horse reins or saddle. I guess it would be the reins because that would be the metal part. For a bushel of tomatoes or whatever the trade was for. Not everything was cash because not everybody had cash. In the cities, property was moderately expensive, compared to the economy of the day. But you didn't have to live in the city, where in modern America anyway, you don't have to live in the city, but if you want any kind of opportunities for business, or if you want to live in any kind of modern society, you got to live in the city. Because we still have places in the country, in Georgia, that you can't get internet. I know places in Colorado that you can't get electricity. You have to bring in a generator, that or use wind or solar. And then there's places that if you use wind and your windmill's too high, they'll fine you for that. So, the government makes it almost impossible to actually live in America without an income, without some cash. But in the day of Christ, you know, sheep farmers and so forth, they would trade. They would trade their wool versus getting paid for it because they could get food for wool or whatever. So I digress, but I get kind of confused about what people want today. And I heard a survey, actually it was a sermon with Billy Graham, that was saying, and this was back in the 60s, what people want today is to be loved, an opportunity for acceptance, and a way to find happiness. Because finding happiness today is a tough thing. And when you try to find that peace and joy in a church, and the church has all these cliques and all these rules and all this religious exercise and workout, that's not joy, that's not peace, it's not what God's about. Having faith in God and living your life to please Him by spreading His word and sharing that love is what God's about. And when you got religions, you know, you got all these churches that you have to wear a robe or, you know, to be a part of the leadership of the church. You know, you get sprinkled with water in the Catholic churches, and you have to come to confession. Bible doesn't say you got to confess to man. It says you confess to God. You profess to man that you proclaim Jesus' love and His grace, and you grow from there. So, you know, I have to kind of scratch my head on that. But the other thing is, you know, if we're all worshiping the same God, and the mission of the Christian is to go out to nations and profess His love, then why is it such an issue for the, let's just say, Catholics and the Methodists and the Baptists and the Protestants to communicate and work together? I don't understand that. And another interesting thing that I find that I want to talk about is music, gospel music. For a long time, there was the old school gospel music, and that was all there was. And today, with some of the modern music, some of the older generation is like, that's not, you know, gospel, that's not biblical, it's not this, it's not that. And I would be willing to bet that what we call gospel music today doesn't sound anything like the singing and rejoicing in the Bible or in biblical days, whether it be Old Testament or New Testament. One, it was a different language altogether. Two, I don't think pianos were invented back then. No pipe organs wasn't. So, you know, there were some string instruments back then, and some of the harps, and, you know, that make beautiful music. But it's nothing to do with modern music. So how is it that modern gospel is not gospel music, according to some of the elders? Anyway, there's some food for thought. If you got any comments or any ideas about how you see your relationship with God versus the religious fashions in your life, or if you even let them into your life, give me a comment, give me a shout out, a message, something, because I would like to see if I'm the only one that's feeling this or thinking this. Anyway, penny for your thoughts. Go in peace and have a great day.